This page was created to teach Black history. Unfortunately, the American educational system was designed to exclude our real historical account, so we are here to dismantle it. It's time to enlighten those of us who have been kept in the dark. I am a Black man who didn't know enough about my own history, so I began to dig deeper and do my own research. Black history is American history, so I want people of all races and cultures to join together to learn our history as one. Here, I will share all of my findings. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe to Teaching Black History. Story of Josephine Baker. Frida Josephine McDonald was born on June 3, 1906 in St. Louis, Missouri. Her mother, Carrie, was adopted in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1886 by Richard and Everett McDonald, both of whom were former slaves of African and Native American descent. Baker's estate and some other sources identify drummer Eddie Carson as her natural father. Josephine McDonald spent her early life in the Mill Creek Valley neighborhood of St. Louis, a racially mixed low-income neighborhood near Union Station, consisting mainly of rooming houses, brothels, and apartments without indoor plumbing. She was poorly dressed, hungry as a child, and developed street smarts, playing in the railroad yards of Union Station. Her mother married Arthur Martin, a kind but particular unemployed man, with whom she had a son and 2 more daughters. She took in laundry to wash to make ends meet, and at 8 years old, Josephine began working as a live-in domestic for white families in St. Louis. One woman abused her, burning Josephine's hands when the young girl put too much soap in the laundry. In 1917, when she was just 11, a terrified Josephine witnessed racial violence in East St. Louis, Illinois. By age 12, she had dropped out of school. At age 13, she worked as a waitress. She also lived as a street child in the slums of St. Louis, sleeping in cardboard shelters, scavenging for food in garbage cans, making a living with street corner dancing. She found work with a street performance group called the Jones Family Band. In her teen years, she struggled to have a healthy relationship with her mother, who did not want her to become an entertainer. At the age of 13, she headed to New York City during the Harlem Renaissance and performed at the Plantation Club, Florence Mill's old stomping grounds. In Shuffle Alone, Josephine was a dancer positioned at the end of the chorus line. Fearing she might be overshadowed by the other dancers, Josephine used her position to introduce a hint of comedy into her routine, thereby making her stand out from the other dancers. Baker sailed to Paris in 1925 and opened on a 2 October in l'Avenue Negre. In Paris, she became an instant success for erotic dancing and for appearing particularly nude on stage. After a successful tour of Europe, she broke her contract and returned to France in 1926 to star at the Folies Bergère, setting the standard for her future acts. In later shows in Paris, she was open and often accompanied on stage by her pet cheetah, who was adored with a diamond collar. The cheetah frequently escaped into an orchestra pit where it terrorized the musicians, adding another element of excitement to the show. After a while, Baker was the most successful American entertainer working in France. Ernest Hemingway called her the most sensual woman anyone ever saw. In 1929, Baker became the first African American star to visit Yugoslavia. During this period, she released her most successful song, Jadadoks Amores, 1931. The song expresses the sentiment that I have 2 loves, my country and Paris. Despite her popularity in France, Baker never attained the equivalent reputation in America. In September 1939, when France declared war on Germany in response to the invasion of Poland, Baker was recruited by the French Military Intelligence Agency as an honorable correspondent. She socialized with the Germans, ministries, nightclubs, charming them while secretly gathering information. Her cafe society fame enabled her to rub shoulders with those in the know, from high-ranking Japanese officials to Italian bureaucrats, reporting what she heard. She attended parties and gathered information at the Italian embassy without raising suspicion. When the Germans invaded France, Baker left Paris. Later in 1941, she and her entourage went to French colonies in north of Africa. The stated reason was Baker's health, since she was recovering from another case of pneumonia. But the real reason was to continue helping the Renaissance. After the war, Baker was awarded the Renaissance Medal by the French Committee of National Liberation and was named Chevalier of the Légion d'Honneur by General Charles de Gaulle. In 1951, Baker was invited back to the United States for a nightclub engagement in Miami. After winning a public battle over desegregating the club's audience, Baker followed up her sold-out run at the club with a national tour. Rave reviews, enthusiastic audience accompanied her everywhere, climaxed by a parade in Harlem in honor of her new title, NAACP's Woman of the Year. The incident at the Stoke Club in 1951 interrupted and overturned her plans. Baker criticized the club's unwritten policy of discouraging black partners and scolded columnist Walter Winchell, old ally, for not rising to her defense. Winchell responded swiftly with accusations of communist, a serious charge at the time. The ensuing publicity resulted in the termination of Baker's work visa, forcing her to cancel all her engagements and return to France. It was almost a decade before U.S. officials allowed her back into the country. In January 1966, Fidel Castro invited Baker to perform Cuba. Her spectacular show in April broke attendance records. Although based in France, Baker supported the civil rights movement during the 1950s. When she arrived in New York with her husband Joe, they were refused reservations at 36 hotels because of racial discrimination. She was so upset by this treatment that she wrote articles about the segregation in the United States. She refused to perform for segregated audiences in the United States, although she was offered $10,000 by a Miami club. The club eventually met her demands. Her insistence on mixed audience helped integrate live entertainment shows in Las Vegas. Baker also worked with the NAACP. Her reputation as a crusader grew to such an extent that the NAACP had Sunday, 20 May 1951, declared Josephine Baker Day. She was presented with life membership with the NAACP by Nobel Prize winner Ralph Bakshi. In 1963, she spoke at the March on Washington at the side of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Baker was the only official female speaker. After King's assassination, his widow, Coretta Scott King, approached Baker in the Netherlands to ask if she would take her husband's place as leader of the civil rights movement. After many days of thinking it over, Baker declined, saying her children were too young to lose their mother. She was married several times and adopted and raised 2 daughters and 10 sons. On April 8, 1975, Baker starred in a retrospective review at the Babino in Paris. celebrating her 50 years in show business. 4 days later, Baker was found lying peacefully in her bed surrounded by newspapers with glowing reviews of her performance. She was in a coma after suffering a cerebral hemorrhage. She was taken to the hospital where she died at age 68 on April 12, 1975.